All right, we're 1 second. We're gonna get to it.
Okay.
What's up, y'all?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to Conversation Piece with Patrick Armstrong. I am the titular Patrick, and this is a show where we talk about the missing pieces of the conversations we're already having. Shout out to all our returning listeners, and a high five and hello to everybody joining us for the very first time. I appreciate you as we kick off month 3. I appreciate you joining us as we kick off month 3 of 2024. My guest today is a Chinese-American transracial adoptee based in Arkansas. Listeners of the show will recognize her as one of our special guest co-hosts for the Holiday Spectacular at the end of last year, 2023. When she's not traveling, you can find her on IG at Lee_, or if you're into the sporadic book recommendation, at Leah Reads with a Z for book-related things with a Z as well. It is an honor and privilege for me to welcome my good friend, Leah Burns, back to the show. Leah, what's up?
Woo! Hi! Whoa! Mike's going in and out for effect, even though he has like a soundboard. I'm pretty sure.
I don't use it. I don't use it on this show. Do I use it? I actually did use it when we did the holiday special. I forgot.
Okay, nice. Maybe you can bring it back just for me.
You want me to bring it back?
No, you don't have to.
It's too late. I'm not good at it. at it. This is how
Only
I feel
KJ.
when I'm not good at it.
Nice.
That's how I feel about it.
That was good timing.
Yeah. Leah, before we jump into it really quickly, you said you had a joke about Kevin's. I want to hear it. Go.
Oh, Well, the joke was really me asking, what's your dad's name? Because it fit the context of the question or the conversation. And then you said Kevin. And then I said, Kevin's a girl? And then I thought, oh my goodness, what if Patrick has never seen the movie Up and I just have potentially offended him and indirectly his father? But you have seen Up. But you have seen Up. It's been a while. And hey, Russell is an Asian American.
That's right. Shout out Russell. Shout out Kevin. I don't think that he listens to the show, but if he does, shouting him out. He's not offended. I'm going to go ahead and speak for him. Not offended.
Okay. Amazing. But your mom listens.
I'm also not offended. My mom does listen. She might be laughing about it. So
she'll share this soundbite with him. Thank you. Oh. Not thank you. Goodbye.
You can thank her.
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. Wow, I hope I didn't make her sound old.
I won't say anything. She is old though.
Ooh.
She is the right age for her. Is that good? Is that a compliment?
That's amazing. I'm going to use that. You're the right age for you.
You are the right age for you. When I picture Cheryl Armstrong, I picture you at this age.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Oh man.
Leah, I know for anybody who is listening to this right now, who has not turned this off 3 minutes or 7 minutes or 8 minutes into the show, I don't know how long and how much of that preamble before we hopped on I'm going to keep in. But for anybody listening right now or watching on YouTube who is or who did not listen to the holiday episode, do you mind sharing just a little bit more about yourself?
Yes. I actually think that you covered it in my little bio. I am a transnational adoptee from China. I was adopted by a white single mom. Single by choice, white by European descent. You know how it goes, guys. But yeah, I feel like, and I grew up in the South. So if you think, oh my gosh, she has like a Southern accent, it's because I was raised in Central Arkansas. But I really try so hard not to have one. But it's just, a given sometimes. And I'm going to cringe that I said that entire last sentence on the World Wide Web.
Did you ever actively work on developing a non-Southern twang to your accent? Or were you ever aware that was something you didn't want to... affectation you didn't want to have?
I was always aware that I did not want to have it, for sure, 110%. But I never did anything too actively to negate it.
Sure.
But I mean, it's just a given whenever I'm out and about in the world that is not Central Arkansas. I mean, even still in Central Arkansas, I'm sure you're familiar with microaggressions, people being like, oh, "Your English, it's so good," and you're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I'm from here.
I've been here my entire life almost.
Yeah. So I mean, lately I should be saying, wow, yours is great as well with like deadpan.
That's a good
Um,
comeback.
yeah, sometimes that's how I deliver the rebuttals for the microaggressions. Um, wow, the question was tell us more about yourself, and here I am talking about microaggressions. Let's get to the good stuff. Um, you're never going to have me back on this podcast, and people are checked out.
They're checking back in.
I hope so. Come on, guys. Yeah, so I was like raised in Central Arkansas. Been in a lot of like white spaces. Grew up in like a Southern Baptist church. So I'm very familiar with white spaces. Um, and I have been in Central Arkansas my like entire life, apart from the part of being adopted.
Mm.
But that
Went
is
to school and everything, and college and everything in Arkansas.
Yeah, I went to
Central Arkansas.
Yes, went to college like 40 minutes away from the town that I grew up in. And yeah, that's the gist.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that gist. For folks listening who, for whatever reason, don't know what Southern Baptist Church is or how to define it, not speaking for anybody here, of course. I totally know what it is. But for anybody who may not know, do you mind defining like what that is and just giving us a little, I guess, foundation to work from?
Yes. So honestly, historically, the Southern Baptist Convention only came about because they wanted to keep enslaved people enslaved. And that is really like how, like, the root of the SBC, which is like what its like acronym is, like how it came to be. But obviously, now today they're still very like very conservative. So I grew up in a like really conservative faith, which is interesting because we were not like a super conservative family. I mean, my mom was like a single woman by choice, and a lot of like the things that I was like being told and taught and like shown was, ladies, you got to have a husband to lead the house, because how else are you going to be like a productive woman in society if you don't have a man telling you what to do? But yet I would come home, and my mom is now a retired elementary librarian. And so all of like her friends were also single women who were also like in the church as well. But they weren't all necessarily like mothers or caregivers. They had like their own careers. I mean, some of them, were married, but, a lot of them were just like other single women.
Sure.
So it was really interesting growing up in the church, being fed all of this like thought, when in reality, like my life was not what they were like saying a typical family should be.
Sure.
And I never like really questioned it. I did think, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, I don't have a dad. There's not like a man telling us like, oh, we need to do this X, Y, and Z, or like, oh, I feel the Lord telling us to move to Nebraska to plant a church, or something like that. And I also, even though I was or am adopted, not well, I mean, was adopted.
You were adopted and you are adopted.
Are adopted, yeah.
I are adopted for sure.
He, she, we adopted. I don't know if you have watched SpongeBob or not. But anyway. All of this to say, you would think like the savior narrative would come into play, which it did like in the church, but like never in the home. Like, was I ever made to feel like that? But it's just strange to like be in that culture for so long when your reality is not like that day to day, but yet that's what. So honestly, it's kind of wild that I didn't like come out of the church, as hell-bent.
Well, I think it makes sense because you were in this own like sub community of Southern Baptists that was really, it was adjacent to and maybe not even running in parallel with that, like the teachings of. It's more like, it's kind of like shooting off in this way for podcast listeners who aren't watching this. I'm making a slight V where the things are breaking apart here, the paths, which I think is pretty interesting. And is that it? I mean, it sounds like to me similar in a sense to my like faith situation when I was growing up, where my parents were God believers, still are, I would say. And we went to church, but it wasn't like this is what it was like. You should believe in God, but like we aren't necessarily like gung ho Christian doing all of these things all the time. Like it's just something that you did. And I think that felt kind of generational. Like people just went to
Mm,
church in the family and then you continued to go to church. Do you think that was, is that how it felt with you and your mom?
growing up, yes, for sure. And then when I got to college, it was not that. It was very much more like I did not like really feel grandfathered into the faith at all. I
Sure.
like felt like that it was definitely like my own. I was able to like do my own questioning, like meet my own peers who were also believers, or like had grown up in the church or were like new believers. So as time went on, I would say no. But
There
like
wasn't like a
growing up,
pressure to feel like you had to continue in whatever journey or like the same path that your mom was on.
right. But like growing up, it was just like, this is what you do. So here you are. And you're going to sit down and you're going to like listen. And honestly, I really did not like it as a kid.
Sure.
Only because, not because like they were like teaching these Bible stories and stuff. I did not have a problem with that. But because I was like the only person of color in those like groups and stuff,
Yeah.
I only now have like the language, as a lot of these adoptees our age or whoever like are coming into consciousness do. Now I have the language to be like, so I felt very objectified by all of these other kids because they would touch my hair, they would
Mm,
pick me up and like
ugh.
like walk me
Yikes.
across the room. And I mean, I am yeah.
I
I'm
don't
like,
like that.
yeah, me either, dude. And there was one girl who would always call me her freaking China doll. And
Ugh.
I would say, I don't like that, or like, that's weird, or like, stop, or I would like ignore her. Um,
Yeah.
I think Dr. like Kimberly McKee in like her latest book, Asian
Asian
Adoptee Fantasies.
fantasies. Yeah, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. She was like,
Or maybe
silence
it's adoption
is,
fantasies. I want to get the title right. We'll put the title up. We'll flash the title of the book right here on the screen as this is playing. So
yeah.
continue.
Anyway, she, I think, said in her book that like silence is survival or something to that effect.
Sounds about right.
Um, and so occasionally, I mean, we've all done it. We've all been like, let me just be quiet and shut up and stuff. So anyway, only now do I like realize that I actually like hated parts of childhood. I did not hate my
Sure.
entire childhood. Parts of childhood, because I was very much othered and I like knew it was because I was Chinese, but I also didn't know. I
Sure.
just couldn't understand, like, hey, I know I look different than you, but like also you have long hair too, and I'm not like touching your hair, girl, and I'm not asking to
Right.
braid your hair, which also I know to a degree girls just like love to braid hair, and I love that for them. But do not touch my hair and make me feel like a pet. And like even to this
Yeah.
day, sometimes, like very rarely on the occasion, will someone like straight up like touch my hair.
An adult person?
Yeah, like recently at this,
Jeez.
yeah, anyway, it's insane. Which obviously now I have like gained the confidence to be like, back off,
Back
or,
the frick up, bro.
yeah, or be like, can I help you? Like, are you losing something in my hair? Like,
I hope you're brushing something away that I
yeah,
had
yeah,
in
yeah.
there that was
Yeah.
unbecoming of me.
I better have like a bee or like something in my, I don't know. Anyway, but yes, insane, wild. And that was all
Yeah.
at church. And I
Yeah.
mean,
I feel like
at school as well.
for sure. I mean, I definitely, and I feel like I've talked about this a couple times, but I don't know if I've talked about it on this podcast. The hair thing was a real thing, like the touching of your hair, like the petting of you. And It was I never, ever, ever, not a single fucking time enjoyed somebody doing that. But I would always, it was almost
Wait,
like a voluntary response to just like lean in and allow people to do that. And
whoa.
because my hair it's very thick, it's very straight, and just was different than everyone else's.
Yeah.
And that was just all around. Like that wasn't just in church, that was everywhere. But in church, and I think this is something that adoptees who are going through like faith deconstruction and thinking about their journeys as kids growing up in the church talk about is there is this like the church is definitely one of the first places that I felt that other feeling and felt made to feel different in a way that I didn't understand. So I went to a Catholic grade school,
Mm,
and every Friday we would go to morning mass before class, and they would do communion, and I would be the only person because I wasn't Catholic who wasn't going up to get the communion. And so I didn't understand then like why it was making me feel this way. All I could think of was that I wanted my family to then become Catholic so I could go up and do the communion with everybody else.
yeah.
I didn't care about the body of Christ and the blood of Christ. Like I just wanted to do it because everybody else did, and I felt like shit because I was sitting there by myself, like in the fourth
Yeah.
pew, actually in the first pew because my last name was Armstrong, started with an A,
Armstrong.
so I'm up in the front,
Okay.
which makes me even stand out even more because I got to let all these people slide out in front of me. But
Mm,
it's just like it's just one of these situations, maybe in like Midwestern and Southern towns specifically, which are maybe lean predominantly white. Well, I guess it's pretty much everywhere, honestly. But it's like you find yourself in a church and you almost always are the only one or one of a few. And even if I was one of the few, like I wasn't going up to talk to these other people because then that would associate me with them. And then we would be maybe two people, but we're over here away from the group. And I don't want to do that. I didn't
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So I can totally resonate with your story of feeling that because I felt that as well.
Yeah. Also, another story that just popped into my mind that has nothing to do with being the only like person of color or Asian person in the room at church. Freaking growing up, when it was like Mother's Day or Father's Day, everyone had to say what they were thankful for about their mom or their
Mm,
dad. Well, not everyone is with their mom or dad. Not everyone,
right.
whatever. And I remember being like in this Sunday school class where we had to talk about like how grateful we are for our dad. And I was like, I was okay with like, well, I guess in the hindsight, I wasn't okay with not having a dad, but it just felt uncomfortable because then here is like this young girl who's like forced to be like, so
Sure.
I don't have a dad only because I am adopted and I was adopted by a single mom. And it's not because like my parents are divorced or my dad is dead
Right.
or like anything like that. And also, what kid really cares? And like, what other kid is going to be like, frankly?
Sure. Were you
Um,
ever put in a position when you shared that to have to then explain why your mom was single?
all the time. Yes. People sometimes like growing up would just make casual conversation, be like, what did your mom do? What did your dad do? Or like, things like that. And then I would say,
Yeah.
oh, I actually don't have a dad. And then they would be like, and then I would be like, well, it's only because I was adopted by a single mom. And then they'd be like,
Sure.
because then also another thing with like growing up in the church is, oh my gosh, you have a single mother, all of the hardships she must face as a
Mm,
single mom, which I mean, yeah, everyone faces hardships or whatever, but it just always seemed like people automatically assumed my mother's story and what led to me like existing when
right.
in actuality that it was a very different unique case than what people are thinking like, oh, unwed mother child, da da da.
Right.
When I'm like, no, she actually just like flew across the country to or across the world to get me. So like it's very different. But shout out
Yeah.
to the single moms out there, no matter what the circumstances. So
100%. Shout out to the single moms. Yeah, it's like not only are you put in this position where you have to explain yourself, but then you have to explain your familial situation. And I feel like that type of thing can either make or break a relationship.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind sharing, like, how did that affect your relationship with your mom? Because I feel like you're pretty close, just
Yeah.
based on your stories and everything that you kind of talk about and that we've talked about offline. But how did that dynamic play into the relationship y'all had?
Um, Sorry, can you rephrase the question?
How
What do you
did
mean?
the how did the dynamic of having to not only have to explain yourself, but then explain like your mom's situation of like, oh, she's a single woman because she wanted, like, she's by her own choice. Like, how did having to explain both sides of this narrative and your whole family dynamic to other people, to strangers, affect the relationship that you had with your mom?
I don't well, first, thanks for rehashing it. I
Yeah.
understand the question now. I first I was like one ear out the other, huh? I don't
Come
think it
on,
actually
Leah.
I don't think it like put a strain on the relationship at all. I would just be
Sure.
like, ugh, another kid asked me this again. And ugh, I had to like rehash it and explain it in layman's terms or something like that. But it was never a situation where it was, ooh, I hate that you're in this situation. I'm kind
Right.
of sorry, kind of not sorry. It was just like, hey, this happened. You know, it's going to happen the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it really didn't, it was just like, and now in hindsight, it's kind of sad. It was just like a normal fact of life. Like, this is going to happen for the rest of my life. And I'm going to get better at like executing the story.
Did you ever have to like talk to your mom about having to deal with those situations?
Um, Not really. I think I would just like share here and there, like, hey, this conversation happened and I like hate like rehashing it. But it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
never, yeah, it was just like a fact of life, just like knowing, oh, I'm adopted. It was
Yeah.
just there.
Well, the reason I
Um,
asked, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was
No.
saying the reason that I asked, and maybe how the original question got a little bit jumbled, was like that type of having to navigate that type of scenario. I feel like can make or break sometimes a relationship between
Mm,
child and parent, because it's
gotcha.
like,
Yeah.
because you're put in that position so often, or however often it was, like someone can, like a child especially, can feel like, well, why do I have, like, why is this the way that it is? But for some people, it can make the relationship stronger because it's like, well, I want to protect my mom and she's done all of this for me, and like taking gratitude out
Mm,
of it, it's just like, like we have, like, it makes the relationship stronger because of, the stuff that you have to go through. So that was
right.
why I was asking that.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, it was just like a fact of life, very similar
Yeah,
to like how, um, yeah, just a fact of life.
sure.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Um, no worries. You can say as much or as little as you want, and it's not even the John Chi show.
Well, I had
Um,
like a half thought, and then I said, I can't even finish that thought up, so I'm just gonna chunk it.
in one part of your brain, out the other part of your brain.
Yes, yes.
How did your faith journey go in college? You said that you got to kind of choose your own adventure, essentially, pick like the relationships that you have, do the types of things that you wanted to do, explore what you wanted to explore. What was that journey like?
Yeah, I think whenever you said choose your own, I immediately thought of those like chapter books that you're like,
Yeah.
go to page 27 to jump
Oh,
off a
you're
cliff,
dead.
or,
Now you got to go back and
ooh,
then you restart.
that got dark. Sorry, guys.
Sorry for the darkness.
Yeah. Yes, in college. So I actually ended up going to this particular college because this church that I was really involved in at the time was like in this city and stuff. And so I was like, college ministry was just like a huge part of my, I mean, I'm still a young adult, but like the earlier young adult years, like a
Sure.
huge part of my identity. Um, and going to college and my like young adult years was like the first time that I had been around people who like did not know that I was adopted and that I did have like a white mom and like
Mm,
white grandparents and such. And so once again, I had to like rehash those conversations of, oh, I'm adopted, X, Y, and Z, this is my family status and stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't until college that I was like, wow, I think I actually do want to like fully fledged be a believer or whatever and have this relationship with the Lord.
Sure.
But then with like the pandemic and COVID and the president at the time who was saying all this nonsense, it was really just like a lot to take in, because very similar back to my SBC days, um, I was like being told this one thing, but I was experiencing this entirely like different thing.
Sure.
Um, like I feel like I remember being at a watch party for like the Emmys or maybe the Oscars, but Sandra Oh did her like famous, oh, it's just an honor to be Asian.
Yep.
And like I was at a watch party or whatever with like friends from church, because like that was literally my entire like community just about in life. And she was saying, you know, oh, it's just an honor to be Asian. And of course I'm like the only Asian in the room, but nobody is like, no one like pointed me out or anything like that, because I feel like the people I was with at this point, it was, you know, whatever, still very like colorblind to a degree. Which I was like raised in a colorblind like household pretty much. And so, anyway, so Sandra Oh, you know, says, oh, it's an honor to be Asian. And that's like one of the first times that I'm thinking in my mind, but is it an honor to be Asian? Because
Okay.
like, where has it gotten me? So far, all it's gotten me is the model minority myth, like put on me since like school age, like since childhood. And like until probably college or so, I didn't even know what the model minority myth was. I didn't even know what I like knew aspects of it, because people would
Sure.
say to me, you know, hey, you're Asian, so X, Y, and Z, and all of these other stereotypes. But nobody had like ever laid out a true definition for me, which also, why would they like lay out a definition to me? All these
Right.
white people saying, hey, Leah, you know, the model minority says this, and we think you should subscribe to it. But that really is like one of the first times that I thought like, is it an honor to be Asian? Is it cool? Because I don't think it really is. Even but
Sure.
prior to that, I still had been kind of like navigating around like the fog, if you want to call it that, or like kind of slowly approaching consciousness. And now that I'm talking about this, I think you asked something about my faith journey, and then I said, psych, we're going to talk about Asian identity.
I think it led into, because you were talking
Yes.
about, you know, wanting to be a believer, then stuff happened with the pandemic, and then you saw at the watch party, Sandra Oh make this declaration, which then triggered a moment of asking, of questioning from your own perspective, is it really an honor? Like, because
Yeah.
it doesn't really seem like it to me.
Yeah. So at the time, that's like what I was thinking, what was going on. And then of course, when 2020 came around and the pandemic and the rise with like Asian hate, I was like, well, shoot, I really don't know if it's an honor, because I'm not really seeing anything great come out of it. Now with that all being said, I was also still like very much, I think at that point I had like left like the college ministry because I was no longer in college. So like,
Sure.
why are you hanging out with all these college students when you're not in college? I mean, I understand that there are like leaders, and to a degree you need like other adults around.
It's like the person who graduated from high school who still for some reason is showing up at all the high school events. It's like, hey guy, you graduated, go ahead and stay over there.
Like, I know when to leave the party. Okay. Some people do not, let me tell you.
Yep.
But anyway, so all of this stuff was happening in 2020. I was like not going to like the physical church because of the pandemic, and like no one was taking it seriously. But I was at the time working. Oh my gosh, I'm about to burp. Excuse me.
Into the mic.
I should have, but I got scared.
Why? It's me you're talking to.
I know.
It's me.
But anyway, maybe you did you hear it? Barely?
No, I didn't even hear it. Look, you were just going like this.
Oh yeah. Dang. Oops. Okay. Maybe it'll pop back up.
That's getting straight zoomed right in. That part.
Anyway, where was I going with this?
You had left college.
Yeah,
and you weren't going to church because the pandemic and nobody was taking it seriously.
Yeah. And that's when I was really like, oh, I don't like any of this. I don't like any of this. This is hard. And I also was working at the time at like a college Christian ministry. And so once again, very like in the trenches.
Yeah.
And I well one had to go to this office space like every day when people are saying work from home if you can, and like I'm being asked to come in, even though I did ask to work from home because at the time I did live with my mom, and at the time she was very much so immune compromised, and I said
Mm.
this, and they said, so I literally just like worked in this office, in like this private office space, like with my door closed for like a year and a half. So that is already pretty isolating on its own.
Right.
Um, in addition to like witnessing all of this like anti-Asian hate going on and all of these like women being like brutally murdered in New York, seemingly like once after another. And then the Atlanta spa shooting happens. And at this point in my adoptee journey, I think maybe I had like joined Bookstagram and like seen and virtually met other like Asian adoptees and like Asian people, and so that was like really cool and really special to like still be a part of and like connect with online, but still my day to day was just like whiteness and such.
Right.
And it was still just so hard going to that job knowing that like, oh, we're in this college ministry, we're here to like love on people and like be Christians. And here I am being like, okay, well, I actually don't feel loved. I actually don't feel cared for. And I felt straight up guilty talking about racism when it was happening to people who looked like me. And I straight up said later on, after who knows, at one point in this big timeline, but some pastors who I still like really care and respect, I straight up told them, I said, because, you know, of course, the civil rights movement of like Black Lives Matter was going on as well. So I was feeling very conflicted about that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, can it be a and or a both and situation? Or does it have to
Sure.
be like a either or? Like, if I speak up about Asian American lives, does that mean that I don't care about Black Lives Mattering? Which obviously is not the case. But anyway, I did straight up end up telling these pastors, I said, like, if the church won't stand up for Black Lives Mattering, what's gonna what am I gonna expect when something happens to Asian Americans in this country? And I was totally right. I was totally right, which I guess was also heartbreak in itself to like
Sure.
confirm those things once you've been like in this community for maybe at this point 5 or 7, maybe even
Sure.
8 years or so in this town. So all of this was happening, and I was like coming to consciousness and like coming out of the fog and like meeting other adoptees. And I will never forget watching George Floyd's like murder trial on my computer at this college ministry with my door closed and the volume down so low, because I knew, like, even now I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, because I knew nobody there almost like probably cared
Sure.
to the degree and maybe to the weight that I was feeling it at the time. Like maybe they knew it was going on, but like not enough that they were going to tune in during their workday. So that just felt very isolating as well. And it just made me very and also, regardless, the church is a business. Like, yes, it could be like a house for the Lord and worship and stuff, but like the church is a business. They need to make money. They're going to make money. So I was getting very disillusioned with that as well.
Sure.
And I think that,
no, go.
I think that around this time I had like known, hold on. Okay. I think around this time, I told you, we're going to get the trauma and we're going to get the laughs.
I love it. That's a
Make
good
that
balance.
A soundbite.
I will.
I like up till this point, I had known what it was like to be alone because I like only child. I knew how to, be alone. And I
Sure.
love being alone. I think it's actually one of the best things ever. But this was like the first time that I had felt lonely. And
Yep.
I did not know like how to take it and how to sit with it. I like was seeing a therapist at the time, like on and off through college. And while all of this was going on, especially after like the Atlanta shooting, and I was like, I need to talk to you right now. This like tragic thing has happened and no one understands. And I literally have been crying for days and I cannot stop. And my own mother just like sits there in silence as I'm like crying my eyes out at the breakfast table. Cause at the time I was still living with her.
Sure.
And like, even when I get out of the shower and even when I put my shoes on, I'm like nonstop crying. I need to see my therapist. I went to see her, and this was like maybe a few days after it all happened, and I was like still a mess. And at the end of the session, she said, well, at the end of the day, they're still sex workers. And I said, that immediately cured my crying, actually. I said, I'm in danger. I need to go. I didn't say I'm in danger. I need to go. But I did say.
You thought it.
Yeah. I said, I gonna go. Thanks for your time. This will be the last time I am seeing you. And I'm telling you, not only did it hurt hearing just like those words from her, but it just hurt because she and I like have a lot of history, and she
Sure.
like helped me through all of like the crazy weird things that come with college and life things. And so, but man, did that break the illusion of all therapists will get you through anything and everything.
Yeah.
Because they
100%.
won't.
Yeah. Yep.
They
Well, so what's
won't.
next? So what happens next? Is that when you start to be like, okay, I'm gonna deep dive into this Asian identity thing, or was that still a gradual exploration for you?
I feel like while all of this was happening, it was still very gradual. Like it was all happening simultaneously.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. So like when you first saw Sandra Oh's speech saying,
Mhm.
I'm so proud to be Asian.
Yeah.
Or whatever it whatever it
It's an
was.
honor to be Asian.
It's an honor to be Asian. Yes. When you first saw Sandra Oh, proclaiming it's an honor to be Asian, you had this feeling of like, well, I'm not really sure that's applicable to me. Like, is it really an honor? And you've gone now on this journey of not only feeling isolated, but lonely in your own space, in your workplace, in the church, in ways that you hadn't felt before. You go to someone who is supposedly safe to try and unpack some of this stuff because it had been very traumatic and you were dealing. And then they drop this bombshell of like, well, they're at the end of the day, they're still sex workers. And like you said, it immediately cured your crying. And you're like, okay, I got to go. I'm unsafe. I have to leave. This is the last time I'm going to see you. Does that now trigger this idea of, well, maybe for whatever reason, I do feel it to be an honor to be Asian because I want to resist this idea that even what I thought was safe is not safe for me. So I have to find something else.
Yes, for sure. And then also, I'm trying to think of when I really started doing. It's kind of wild to think that it's 2024 and that was literally 4 years ago. I
know, right?
feel like, yes, it did definitely make me want to like deep dive into the Asian American identity and like resist all of that 110%. And I think because I saw other Asian Americans online, not even necessarily adoptees,
Sure.
like lean into that, I thought I can do this as well. Like growing up, like around middle school or so, I was really into Wong Fu Productions on
Okay.
YouTube.
Yep.
And this was the first time that I had seen other Asian Americans, like on a screen, be a part of the joke, but not the butt of the joke.
Mm,
And that was so meaningful to me. Um, just because I knew there were other Asian like Americans out there or whatever. Like I have a handful of like Asian adoptee friends
yeah.
in real life. So it wasn't like you're a unicorn or anything.
Right.
But it was just interesting and different to see others like who look like you and are being funny and not at the expense of what you look like, at the expense of, oh, you put your shirt on backwards or oh,
Right.
it's a part of the skit.
Like actual comedy and not just
Yes.
like harmful behaviors.
Yes, yes, yes. And yeah. And then also through YouTube years later, I found Dan Matthews'
Mm,
documentary of him being in reunion with his parents or his first family.
sure.
And so that also like kind of led me into other adoptees online as well. Um, yeah.
So you're a big reader,
Mhm.
and now you find yourself in this space of, okay, let me do a little exploration. Let me figure out what it means to be honored, to be Asian. And I want to assume, even though I don't like to make assumptions, that you maybe picked up some books and started to dive in that way as well, as opposed or in addition to like YouTube and whatever else you might have been taking in at the time. Um, do you remember like the first Asian American author you read at this point? And were there other Asian American authors that you had read prior but had never really transposed yourself into that story in that way?
Yes. So prior, I think one of the first Asian American authors I read was either Jenny Han
Mm,
or Jean Lewin Yang.
okay.
So Jenny Han writes contemporary like romance, YA, young adult. And boy, did I cringe reading that, but I ate it up. I'm not above like being into that, but then also realizing that, oh, it is cringe. It is bad. Sorry, Jenny Han. She's not going to listen to this.
Hey, you don't know that.
But
Jenny, thank you for listening.
I only read it because her last name was Han. And I looked at the back of the photo or the back of the book and I said, whoa, what? Like Asian Americans are allowed to write, basically, which is mind blowing because I think I said earlier, my mom is a retired elementary librarian. So
Right.
I've been surrounded by books my entire life. So for me to be like, I don't know, maybe in middle school and pick up my first Asian American authored book and be like, this is a thing. This is a career path. There are people out there who are authors and who are Asian American. But also, interesting enough, this particular book, the protagonist and everyone in it, they were white. At the time,
Mm,
she did not like have the leverage to
sure,
create
sure, sure.
characters who are Asian American. Um, which now one of the adaptation for this particular book series, the children or the characters are biracial or mixed race.
Oh,
So that's
cool.
interesting. And then, so yeah, fast forward back to this point in time that we're talking about, like 2019, 2022 ish,
Yeah.
is when I really did like pick up intentional, like Asian authored books. Like, of course, Nicole Chong's All You Can Ever Know. Oh my goodness, who would I be if like I had never read that? Yes.
Sure. 100%.
And
Who
I
would
feel
any of
like,
us be in this community had we not read that book?
yes,
You know
I
what I mean?
shared that book with my mom with hopes that she would be like, wow, this is amazing insight into you. Wow, I've learned so much. Instead, I was met with, okay, interesting. And
That's an interesting response.
yes, and I was crushed, let me tell you. It wasn't that she thought the book was validating. I think maybe this was like her first look into like the adoptee
Sure.
consciousness and like coming out of the fog, even though that is like an outdated term, but I'm only using it because some people are more
Sure.
familiar with that. But I do love the adopted conscious model to those scholars. Thank you. So I think it was just jarring for her. And I can only say that now, having gained all this language.
Sure.
But in the moment, I was like, the world's going to end. This is terrible. Like, we're never going to be able to have a regular conversation
Right.
again. So yeah, Nicole Chung. I read this one book called Days of Distraction by Alexa Chang or Chung. And if it's neither of those, I am racist.
How dare you?
But anyway,
Alexandra Chang.
Wow, it wasn't even the right first name. That's so embarrassing. Okay, well,
You're good.
I'm only
You
human,
got
guys.
the title of the book right.
Yeah, I did. I loved the book. It was so unique, and it was like the first book that I had read about a young adult Asian American woman with like this interesting, like, it's a fictional book, but I think it's very loosely inspired by her young adult years. But the way it's written is just like her thought, like a stream of consciousness.
Oh, nice.
No like real solid narrative, but like you obviously know what's going on in her life with her boyfriend and with her job, but it's just her being an Asian American woman and her boyfriend is a white male. And she kind of just like talks about their dynamic and how people perceive them and her. And it was just fascinating. And it was so good. And I thought, man, I am so glad that I picked up intentional, like, am doing more intentional reading with other Asian American authors because there's like such a rich book selection out there.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you had a baseline. So in middle school, I've now heard you talk about Wong Fu, like discovering them at that time, early YouTube. I guess I don't know when you're in middle school, but I'm calling it early YouTube.
Kind of, yeah.
And then Jenny Han. So you had, even though the characters were white in the book, like you still had you saw this Asian author. And even though you would get to the point where you're like, I don't know if it's an honor. I keep coming back to it because I feel like it's a great through line. It's a good middle because it's this idea of having to explore these things, but you still had this baseline. I think about my journey when I hear you share yours and how I would have never made those connections because like when I watched Asian faces on the TV, like, or even anime adaptations of stuff like the English dubs of animation, I was never like, oh, that looks like me. That's something that a face like mine could do. I was always just like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that was a good fight scene. Oh, that was funny. But it was never like, oh, that's me up there. It was always like, eh. And it just never registered in the back of my mind, even though I was consuming that kind of content, even in middle school and high school, in early college. So I think it's really interesting that you made those connections even though they might not have been something that you continue to draw on until later, but it at least laid some foundation for you to build off of once you got to this point of being able to like, okay, I'm ready to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like had I not had those little stepping stones into Asian American media and things like led by Asian Americans, I probably would have been like, ooh, what is that? Oh, why are they like, why do we need Asian American representation? Like,
Sure.
anyway,
It's a different looking journey for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's kind of circle back a little bit. Well, not circle back. We're still kind of moving forward. We're moving forward.
Yeah, sorry if this is
but
like ding, 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 ding.
No, I love
here
it.
and
This
there.
is a great conversation. I
We're keeping
appreciate
it real.
you sharing everything here with us and with me. So you're going on this journey now. You've had some not so great moments in the church. that have put you in a particular position to have different thoughts. Where are you at that moment in time in your faith journey? Are you stepping away? Are you questioning in no uncertain terms what it means to be evangelical? I don't know. I don't want to say Christian, I guess, because you were Southern Baptist, and then I don't remember what you said your college was, like faith specifically. I'm Baptist. Was it a
Yeah.
Baptist college?
No. I went to just like a liberal arts college, but the ministry I
Oh,
was involved in is
in the
like
ministry.
like a non-denominational ministry.
Oh, okay.
So like still
okay.
both like Christian faith-based Protestant. Well, I guess
Okay.
non-denom is not. Well, yeah, it is.
Gotcha. Well, where does that situate you then now that you're on this new path of like
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're on with your own identity?
Like right now in 2024.
No. At that. So like when you started to make those inroads with your Asian identity, like where does your faith journey situate at that point? Which I think will then bring us to the present.
Wonderful.
I guess we'll see. We'll see.
How about we leave it at to be continued? Because honestly, I have no idea. That's like I have no idea.
Sure.
But we'll backtrack to 2022-ish, 2020. I think I was trying to compartmentalize because I was still very much in my, I feel guilty for bringing up racism because nobody else here deals with racism. So like, is it just a me problem? Am I the problem? Which I'm not the problem. And I
no, definitely not.
Knew it at the time, but I was also like, I don't know, maybe.
But you're also still like watching the George Floyd murder trial with the volume low in your own door closed office.
Yes, and I'm also watching people storm the Capitol too with my door closed. And then it just got even more insane that I like had to like leave the office and go walk around a parking lot and like watch it on my phone. And I'm sure people inside thought I was like taking a work call, but all I was doing was literally like, oh my gosh, what the F, basically.
Yeah.
And people inside just didn't care, didn't know. They probably had people that they knew there. And also, if any of my former coworkers there, most likely I still enjoy them. Like I was just at a what do you call it? A bonfire with them a few months ago. I still really, really enjoy them and love them and such, but it was just really hard dealing with all of that compounding. So at the time, I think I was just like thinking that like everybody else kind of, or a lot of other people in my situation, like deconstructing and like taking a step back and kind of like figuring out if this is for me, what is it going to look like? And can it be something different? And I did find Asian American Christian Collaborative, which is kind of like a coalition of other Asian American Christians, which has been so eye-opening to me. Very similar to how Wong Fu was to me in middle school, seeing other Asian Americans who are believers, who embrace being Asian American, but also embrace being a believer. So I do know it is possible. And honestly, listening to, I'm sure people here are like sick of listening to you plug the John Chi Show or someone else plug the John Chi Show.
I thought you were about to say they were sick of listening to me. I'm like, well, okay, that's the end of the show. See ya, everybody.
Wow, mic drop.
Mic dropped all the way to the ground and out of my life.
Y'all had Zach Lubin on, who is a pastor at a school in California. I'm very sorry to this man, but in California.
Pepperdine.
Okay, Pepperdine. And he was the first Asian American pastor that I had ever heard, really. And then I started going to this new church in this new city because I had like quit that former ministry job and moved to a new city. And at this new city, current city, there is an Asian American pastor.
Okay.
And and the first Asian American pastor, and honestly, first like Asian American male, I'm pretty sure, that I had ever talked to. And I'm trying to think. Well, I think maybe I had like DM'd you once or twice, but like that was just you were just like some stranger on the internet.
So you're being like, so you, when you say Asian American male, the first one you've ever like literally talked to, you mean
Yeah.
you mean that literally?
Yeah, like Chinese American man. Yeah, like
Gotcha.
he like grew up in Tennessee.
Okay.
So he says that like in the outside world he was like a Tennessee boy, but on the inside he was like a traditional like Chinese son. So that was just mind blowing to see myself like reflected truly in the body of Christ. So anyway, but today I don't know. We'll see where I land. Ask
You're
me
still figuring
years.
it out. In 10 years?
Yeah, because
if I'm still doing this podcast in 10 years, I better be getting paid.
Oh, I hope so. I've heard your hopes and dreams for this thing. I hope so. Ooh.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, I mean, I will stand by that, but I enjoy doing it. So I can have conversations like this with incredible people like yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, so TBC on the faith journey right now, or I mean, you're still on it. You're just trying to, it's hard to define, I would say. You don't know where, like you said, you don't know where the landing spot is yet.
Yeah. For everybody listening who knows me in real life, don't worry. I still believe that Jesus died for my sins. Don't like start texting each other in your group messages. Did you see Leah on this podcast talk about she's questioning her faith? It's fine.
See, everyone, you know what's so interesting though? I'm glad you did that, and I also hate it to my core, because why do we always have to caveat? Why do people jump to these conclusions? I talked about not wanting to assume, and I don't like making assumptions. This is why. Is because you hear somebody say one thing on one platform and it immediately becomes absolute. And that's not the case. You talked about, going through the journey of both and realizing, oh, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both and. Like,
I promise I can have a serious conversation in life.
Oh my gosh. That was great. I mean, it's great to cut the tension in that way. But I say all that to say, it's possible for us to have conflicted feelings, complicated feelings about stuff that has been foundational in our life. And I think to question is to grow. To question is to know, because you can't know an answer if you don't ask the question first. And things in our life that we take as absolute, can be shaken at their foundations, at their core. And if we're never shaking those things, and it's not that we can't have core values, core beliefs, things that we can hold on to like rocks that are anchors that can anchor and tether us to a certain place. That is, we should have those types of things, and we should be willing to challenge our preconceived notions about whatever it is. And so anybody listening who is thinking about texting their friends and being like, oh, did you hear what Leah said on this podcast that nobody listens to? Just think about why you're sending that message in the first place. I just want you to think about that and ask yourself the question of why you're sending the message, and then maybe have a conversation with Leah about it. And if she says she's not ready to have that conversation with you, then that's okay too. Don't be mad. Just live your life and be like, oh, Leah's a person, and I appreciate her for that. I say that because I hate when I talk about, I have a sibling, a younger sister, also adopted, non-biological. I hate making that disclaimer, that caveat.
I noticed you say that all the time. Yeah.
I hate it. And then, but it's like, it's the same thing with, talking about like adoptive parent, or I'm trying to think of other examples and I'm blanking right now, but just having to make a caveat, because you never know who is listening and how, or watching, and how they're going to take that out of context. Particularly, that's one of the reasons it's hard to make clips if they're not funny, because I don't know who's going to take stuff out of context. And I feel like I'm clipping stuff out of episodes, and I'm like, why is this 6 minutes long? I'm like, oh, it's because I feel like I have to capture all this context, so somebody doesn't be like, oh, well, I don't like what they said. And I'm like, well, did you listen to the whole episode? And then they're probably like, no. So I'm like, okay, I have to, it makes it more difficult to get to what I want to share in those bite-sized Gen Z, Gen Alpha sized attention spans, and I'll say late millennials, myself included. To be able to get that in 30 seconds, it's hard. And honestly, it's not even possible to capture the nuance and what you're really wanting to say in that
For sure.
time. So it's interesting.
It is.
I didn't know that this was the direction this conversation was going to go. But
Okay, me either. I'm not going to lie. I had some notes about my entire life out here, and we did not go over any of them. So this is great.
How do you feel about that?
A-okay. This was yeah. A-okay. This was just here because I thought maybe I would be like a deer in the headlights and be like,
you never are. You say that, but you never are.
I am a girl who lives and breathes. That's how I thought it was going to
go. Well, in your forum, you wrote about the faith journey a little bit, like it's very like think of like one sentence, and that's where I started. That's in my notes. That's where I started this conversation, and then I was like, "Oh, you're a reader," and I was going to ask you about books and Asian American authors, and then I was going to ask you about travel and what you do. Like, where does your sense of adventure come from? But I feel like once we got going and you started to share, I really appreciated like what you were sharing, and I didn't want to like leave that, and I felt like we've shared a lot of conversations. We've met in person multiple times, and I really appreciate you as a friend, not just as somebody who's a supporter, but like someone I consider a friend. And I also feel like within the larger conversations and broader conversations that we've had offline, there are conversations that we haven't had. And again, I didn't know we were going to go in this direction, but I appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing that with me because it shouldn't take the podcast to get to know somebody, but sometimes that's where it goes. And I appreciate, when my friends are willing to come on here knowing that this is going to be a public platform and share whatever they share. Even if it's like, I don't have anything to share, we're just going to make jokes. And that's fine. We're going to burp. We're going to laugh. We're going to not cry. We're going to talk about crying, but not do it. So
I don't know. I'm sure there's still time for me to cry, maybe. Or maybe even you.
Well, we're an hour and 10 minutes in, so that means we're an hour because we recorded for 10 minutes before we started the show.
Okay, bye. It was nice seeing you.
I do want to pick up on this through line of the honor to be Asian. It's just an honor to be Asian. Where are you at with that now? While you might not have a landing spot with your faith journey, and that's an ongoing thing, and we'll come back to it in 10 years on episode 2000. Where are you at with how you feel your pride, this honor of being Asian? And are you there yet? Are you still going? What does that look like for you?
I totally think that yes, I think it. I'm not trying to caveat. I'm not trying to. I think, yes, wholeheartedly think it is an honor to be Asian American. Asian Americans have like such a rich history in this country, which I have like learned to really appreciate. And I really like history, just very, very casually. Sure. In no way am I going to like list off all these dates. But yes, I would say it is an honor to be Asian American. Am I going to wear a t-shirt that says that? No, only because it is not in my personality, honestly, to wear something like that. No offense to Michelle Lee and hashtag very Asian. Love it. I don't know what it is about like apparel that has like catchphrases. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like quotes.
I know people. Emily is a bit similar, I would say, in terms of her aesthetic style. She doesn't really want a bunch of words or like big designs or anything on the front. It's not her thing.
You can just appreciate my outfit for the outfit. You don't need to like read. Right. I say this wearing a sweatshirt that says Old Dominion, but like it's not. I don't know what it is, but yes, it is an honor to be Asian American. Yes, it is hard to be Asian American, but it doesn't like outweigh the honor.
I love it. I love that. That's a clip. That's a clip right there. You're going to get at least 3. Emily's the
Okay.
only person I've ever cut 4 out for and
As you
posted all 4 of
should.
them.
As you should.
Yeah.
Do
Oh, yeah.
not
That's my
give me
wife.
4. Yeah.
I'm
Don't
going to
do
give
that.
you 1. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'll
Awesome.
give you 3. No, you're going to get 3. You got to for the grid. You got
Just-
to for the grid.
Yeah. Just tell me you never want me back on this podcast to my face.
Absolutely not. You're going to be, if I ever had a tab of guest host, it's you. So why do you think I sent you that mic?
Yeah. And you know what? Now that we've like hashed this out and I know the co-hosting life, I'm not hosting this in any way, guys. I'm the guest. Yes, feel much more a little comfortable behind the mic. Ooh, that was
You're
bad.
great. No, you are.
Thank you.
You're extremely eloquent. You don't give yourself enough credit.
You're right. I don't. Thanks.
Yeah, you're a good storyteller.
I had a professor once literally ask me in front of everyone in the class and said, "Why are you so self-deprecating to yourself?" And I said, "So I think it would take a little longer than this 75-minute class period, but thank you, ma'am."
Sure.
And then I went and sat down and just thought about it the entire time.
And what kind of self-deprecating thoughts did you have when you sat down?
A lot.
I get it. I've been very self-deprecating myself in my life, so I totally understand that. It's hard to take compliments. It's easy to give them, hard to receive them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As we come to something of an end to this podcast, I know you have notes, and I know I harped on it a little bit earlier that this went in a different direction than I thought it was going to go.
It was great.
What kind of notes did you bring to the table? Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to that you'd like to talk about now?
I'll save those for the next time I come on. But I do want to ask you questions that kind of went along with the little notes that I made.
You literally just said you're not co-hosting this, and now you're stepping into the co-host role.
Blink.
I can't wait to cut that clip out. I'm going to cut it to where you said that, and then you cut to you saying, I have questions for you, and it's going to be hilarious.
Amazing. Okay, so I know that you love your grandparents dearly. You've shared a handful of times about your relationship with your grandma, writing those sweet letters, and then like hanging out at like some diner or something, right?
Yeah.
With the family, something. Am I right?
Yes, you are right.
Good. Woo, how awkward would that be if I like impose this like fake memory that I have heard from you that is not true?
You got it. You're right on the head with it.
I want to know what random weird person, place, or thing reminds you of your grandmother or grandfather every time you see it, hear it, think about it, whatever.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So for a second there, I was like, oh shit, I don't know that I have these random things. I think they just come into my mind, but I do have one.
Yeah.
So my family has always been black coffee drinkers. That's why I'm a black coffee drinker. And so when you get a fresh cup of black coffee, there's like bubbles that come up around the rim. And my grandma would always say that you had to drink the bubbles before they popped because it was good luck. And so every time that I see the bubbles now, I do that. And I mean, I don't talk about it, but I think about that. Generally, when I have a cup of coffee, I think about my grandma. But that little tidbit in particular is something that I feel like definitely reminds me of her.
That is so sweet. That's so unique. I love that. For me, it's Charlie Puth.
Charlie Puth. Okay.
Yeah. Only because, well, it's Charlie Puth and the Corningware that you cannot see, the Corningware tap.
Okay.
But I don't know why. I was watching some music awards show and my grandmother was in the room and Charlie Puth was on with Meghan Trainor singing some song, but I did not care about it. So I put it on mute. And I was talking to, I guess my mom was also in the room as well. Because at one point, when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother moved in with us. So we spent a lot of hours like just watching TV and stuff. And so the music award show was on mute. I'm talking to my mom, having this conversation, and then all of a sudden, my grandmother, who I called Nine Eye, said, "Oh, are those two like dating? Are they going together?" And I knew who was on the screen, and I said, "No, not at all. Like, I don't really know what you're talking about. Can you like, whatever, be quiet? I'm like talking to mom right now about this thing." Basically, because I was like, why does she think they're dating? And then I look
Right.
over at the TV and they are making out hardcore on
Dang.
national TV. And I was mortified just because my grandmother does not need to see that. She does not need to see that on cable TV. And then also, what the heck are Charlie Puth and Megan Trainor doing up there? And so it's just like a funny, weird moment.
Yeah.
Like it
I mean, your
lasted.
grandma can watch whatever she wants.
Yeah. But not with me in the room. I'm just a little girl,
all
okay?
right. Sure.
So anyway, it was just so bizarre, so random. I like don't even like Charlie Puth really. But whenever like I hear a song of his, I just think of that moment of like being in the living room and being like, this is hilarious and super weird, because here I am just like telling you like off like no, they're not dating, like whatever. I don't know what you're talking about, Grandma.
I went to see the movie 8 Mile when it came out with my parents in the theater, and that was a very awkward movie to watch with them. So I get it.
Yeah. So I've never seen 8 Mile, but I'm gonna go look up the parental guides after this, and I'll know what you're talking about.
You absolutely will.
Uh-oh. And then the other question that I had for you is, which whenever I was like in middle school or so, I would think about this all the time. Like, would I be friends with my mom if she was my peer? Like, I think my mom's like a really good friend, and I'm so biased because I'm like her child and I can see how she is to other friends in her life. But I always wondered, and like sometimes I would even ask her, I'd be like, Mom, do you think we would be friends if we were like in school together and stuff? So I want to know if you think you would be friends with your parents in school.
I've had time to think about this question because this was one that you sent me when I said I was going to have you on.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be friends with them. And it's not because my parents aren't cool people. I would probably, if I grew up in the same town as I did, and like everything was the same except my parents were my peers. I think I might be friends with my dad. I could see that happening. I feel like he is a type of person and personality that at that time and what I picture him being like in middle school, high school, I probably could see us being friends. My mom, I don't know. That's a different story. And it's not because I don't like my mom. I think that I'm just biased because I know what she was like in middle school based on just stories from family and whatnot.
Okay, what about junior high?
I don't know. It would be. I think we could be friends. I could see us being friends. I honestly don't know. She might be just on slightly too wild for me. Based on what I've heard, the stories that I've heard of her.
I mean, she did bring the cheese and the crackers to your basement party, right?
That's true. Well, yeah. It was the pickles wrapped in like mayo and tortilla shells and bologna. Yeah. But just based on what I know, honestly, what I know of all of my mom's side of the family, all of those kids, I don't know that they might be a little too wild. But actually, that I say that now, I did pride myself on being able to be friends with whoever. Like I played sports and I felt like I was friends with popular people because I tried really hard to be, but also I didn't necessarily think I was willing to just shun anybody. That I was definitely would do problematic things sometimes because that's what you did in small town Indiana at that time, and things that I don't like that I did. But I also feel like I didn't try to like ostracize anyone. Like if somebody wanted to be friends, most likely I could be friendly with them. So, I say all that to now say, yeah, maybe.
I mean, you would give her the time of day as like
I
a
try.
classmate.
I give her an
But
opportunity.
she would not be coming over to the basement to chill
Well, I mean,
in
see,
high school.
you know what?
Maybe
I'm
she
not going to
would.
put my mom on blast like that, but maybe.
I like what you said about how you were pretty much friends with like all sorts of different types of
Yeah,
people in school. I feel like me being an only child, because there was like no one else for me to befriend. I like befriended anyone and everyone. And so like
sure.
you, I had friends like who were jocks, the artsy fartsy crowd, the band geeks, the
Yeah.
kind of normal in the middle, aka me. So yes.
Yeah, I mean, I played sports all through my school years, and then like during the latter half of my high school years, I got really into comic books, and so that took me in a different direction from a friend group perspective. But I never like lost any of the other friends, I don't think. But yeah, I just always felt like I could be at least cordial and friendly with whoever, and I wasn't ever out to like put anybody down. And if I'm misremembering that and I did do that in any way, I do apologize retroactively 20 years later. But, well, 15 years later. But yeah, I don't know. I as far as the original question, we're going to leave it at a maybe.
Nice.
Which is more than I could say when you originally asked me. I was like, probably not. But I've worked my way to a maybe.
I love it. I love it. Whatever the answer is, it's your own and you own it. So that's awesome.
Well, I appreciate that.
Something out of pocket friend related, and you can totally cut this out if you want to, because we are approaching an hour, minute 30, an hour 30.
Nope,
Wow.
that's staying in.
You talking about friends. I like obviously have like always known that I was adopted and such, but it was actually a friend of mine who introduced the idea of adoption being traumatic
Oh, interesting.
to me. It was a friend who introduced that idea to me. I could never even conceive that that act is traumatic.
Sure.
Just because at the time, I think I was like in middle school or something.
Mm.
At the time, I was thinking, well, I don't remember it. And I really love my mom. And, you know, we're like content and she's real cool. And I've got a great grandparent set and all of this. What do you mean? But they straight up was like, I bet it was so, like traumatic. And
Interesting.
yeah. And for this individual to just like already have that, and this person was not adopted themselves, like white, cis, het, male, like family, mom, dad, white picket fence, all of that. So I was like, whoa, how do you know this? And that is, anyway, has just stuck
Well, you
with
weren't
me.
even asking that. You were just like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
I would have, if somebody had told me that back then, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah. Like, ooh, that's weird.
Yeah. I just burped, but I did it silently.
Oh, I truly wonder if you're going to keep the burp in and if you're going to make me like look cool while I'm burping. Not that you couldn't not make me look cool.
I might cut it and put it at the very beginning of that's be the first thing that anybody sees on the YouTube and then hears on the thing. Because it was a fun moment of this podcast.
That might make or break the pod, so maybe you shouldn't.
I don't care. People will show up, and the people who've been supporting. Yeah, if they're real ones, if they're day ones, they'll definitely be here, and I appreciate all of them for that. Speaking of supporters and all of that, I guess the rest. I got one more question for you. I got to ask everybody, and I know I asked you at the end of 2023, but this is coming out the beginning of March 2024. We're closing in on the end of Q1 already, if you can believe that. How does this audience, how do people listening or watching best support you through the rest of this year and beyond?
Be nice, be supportive, encourage me.
Encouragement girl.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I don't know, just like be there for me via the internet. I don't really know. Honestly, just like be nice, frankly. That's like the best I can come up with. That's a lie. Hannah Lee once said on your podcast, one of them, I don't know, but I loved what she said. She said, for her as an adoptee, if you are supporting one of us, you are like supporting all of us. And I
Snaps.
love that. So, guys, support Patrick. You don't have to support me. You can support me by supporting Patrick, the adoptee
Well, you
community.
support me by supporting Leah.
Yeah. Support me. Yeah. I don't really know how you would support me because, like, I have my own job and, like, I don't know.
You support yourself.
Yeah. Support my Bookstagram. It's not real
There you
active.
go. I was going to say, where do people find you? I said it at the beginning, but that was an hour and a half ago. What are your handles? How do they get in? What are your handles? How do they get in touch with you? Where do they follow you at?
Yes, you can support me, I guess, by checking in. I feel weird being like, follow me. If you don't want to follow me, don't follow me. That's fine. I won't follow you. I'm not mean, guys.
That's a clip. Like, you've given me this episode. Honestly, I'm going to be honest before you say this. This has been one of my favorite conversations that I've ever had in the show. Truly, it really, really has. And I just really appreciate it. So continue.
Aw, thanks. I'm just very honored and like love being in this adoptee space, and being your friend. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
But yes, if you want to see what I am up to and want to follow, you may. But my handle on Instagram, you may.
Thank you for permission.
Is Lee, Lee _UHH Lee.
Are you sure? You sounded very unsure.
Yeah.
So
when I started spelling it out, I really like wanted to not spell it out, but I was already in the midst of spelling it out, so I had to commit to the bit. It's just
Committed.
at Lee _, but that is 2 H's and then 1 U. This is why Patrick is going to edit all this crap out, right?
Nope.
I hope.
I'm leaving it in.
Or if you want to see, what I'm like reading, I'm on Booksta, which is book Instagram. And that's also like at Leah Reads. But the S is actually a Z because the S was already taken when I made the Bookstagram. And then I was worried that people would think, oh my gosh, she doesn't actually know how to spell because she spelled it with a Z. But I kind of thought it would be a little quirky. So
no, I like it. It's unique.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe not by choice, but it is.
Yeah, by happenstance.
Well, Leah, I will just reiterate one of my favorite conversations that I've had in 2024, of which there have been many. So not to make it seem like because we're recording this in January that I've only had a few conversations, but always enjoy the time I get to spend with you in whatever capacity that might be. And I appreciate you having been a supporter of mine for a long time, but also just being a really good friend, showing up in the most random places and random spaces to do that supporting act and being, again, a very good friend. So thank you. And thank you for coming on here and sharing everything that we talked about today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. And also, congratulations on being a new father.
Thank you very much. Yes, the baby is not here yet, but as of March, he has been here for a month and hopefully he's doing very well. So
yeah, he has.
Bjorn
it up.
He has. Bjorn it up.
Do y'all have a baby Bjorn?
What? I don't even know what that is.
Oh, wait. So when I made that joke the other day, you just thought it was funny and was like, okay, she's kind of weird?
I meant to look it up, I think, but I didn't. Hold on. Let me look it up right now.
I'll wait.
Are you waiting?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have one of these? I think we might have one of these.
It might just be called a carrier, too.
Oh, we have the exact bouncer. Baby. Oh, we have a baby Bjorn bouncer. Yeah. So we have one that goes on the ground.
Oh,
I don't know if we have the Bjorn carrier.
That you wear.
Yeah. I'm seeing the pictures of people wearing them now. But there is also a bouncer one that we have that. So when I laughed, I did know. I just wasn't. I didn't know at that time.
You know, we don't know some things sometimes, and that's why we grow and learn.
And we just laugh. And
Yeah,
we just
we
laugh
do.
about them. You gotta laugh.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's a callback
congrats.
to another show. Thank you very
Happy
much.
3-month-old baby A.
3-month-old?
Yeah, because this is going to be in March.
Yeah, but he's not here yet. It'd be the end of 2 months. Well, this is the beginning of March, so technically 1 month. Who knows?
Happy
He's
1
an
month.
age.
Happy 1 month.
He's an age. Just get them all out right now. Say happy 1, 2, 3, go.
Happy existence, boy.
Ooh, okay, I like that. I'm cutting that out and putting that on a little speaker on loop and just playing it right next to him when he's sleeping. Happy
He's
existence,
gonna be like,
boy.
Mom, in my dreams, I hear this weird lady saying, "Happy birthday, boy."
Oh my God. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Well, y'all, you can find everything that Leah and I talked about here in the show notes. There is a lot, and I'm going to do a lot of editing on this video because I think it's going to be very fun. New episodes of the show drop every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you want to support us, make sure you leave us a rating or review on any and all of those platforms. You can follow us on Instagram at Conversation Podpiece, and make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, Conversation Piece. The newsletter comes out every Monday. Paid subscribers get exclusive access to our companion show, Conversation Notes, as well as our poetry series, A Word. I don't know why I said our, because it's just mine, but that comes out every Wednesday, again, exclusive for our paid newsletter subscribers. Y'all, we have some really incredible things still to come this year and this month. Working on a very big project that I'm really, really excited to announce. So you're going to hear something more about that in March. There's a lot of production happening on that, as well as fatherhood. But until I get to those things, I have been the titular Patrick, and this has been Conversation Piece. See you soon.